crime to make a mistake? Movie directors are only human after all. From scenes that came off as too brutal and unsettling to misguided casting decisions and even standing too close to the camera while smoking a cigarette, mistakes happen throughout the entire landscape of Hollywood, with horror movies being absolutely no exception at all. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture here with 9 horror movie mistakes confirmed by the creators. Number 8. A crew member in the shot in The Descent. One of the simplest tools to implement in a movie, with potentially the biggest upside, is the use of foreshadowing. Since audiences don't know what they're looking for yet, certain clues and hints can be dropped by the director for later events in the movie to great effect. It was thought that Neil Marshall masterfully made use of this technique during The Descent in 2005. The group of women who make the titular descent into an unknown cave system are eventually chased by beings known as crawlers, though it would appear that one could be seen in a blink and you'll miss it moment before they were ever even introduced to the film properly. What actually happened, however, was that for the briefest moment there was a crew member caught on camera. So there was no clever intentional foreshadowing at all, just someone who was supposed to be behind the camera getting caught in front of it. Still, for those who haven't listened to Marshall confirm exactly what happened on the DVD commentary, this could add another layer to the already creepy movie. It would have almost been better had the director kept his mouth shut and taken the credit for this stellar work. Number 7. Going too weird in Grindhouse. There are so many things that automatically come to mind when you think of Quentin Tarantino. Mr. Blonde dancing in the warehouse in Reservoir Dogs, Mia and Vincent in the dance competition, and even the now over-memed scene of Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are all great examples. What you wouldn't typically go to is Grindhouse, the legendary director's ill-advised double feature released with Robert Rodriguez. Comprising of the latter's Planet Terror and the former's Death Proof, there weren't nearly as many people interested in these stories as either man was used to. According to Tarantino, the mistake he and Rodriguez made was that they assumed fans would be on board with whatever they did. They had taken audiences on wild journeys before, and they had always been followed, but not this time. The movie ended up losing money, bringing in just $24.5 million at the box office against a budget of $53 million, and it was a hard lesson for Tarantino to learn. At least he was able to recognize that mistake and learn from it, going on to make one of his finest ever pieces just 2 years later in Inglourious Basterds. Number 6. Not focusing on the xenomorph in Prometheus. There's a habit in Hollywood to take any successful franchise and give it sequels, prequels, reboots, and any other possible way of milking it for all it's worth until fans are utterly tired of it. Some of these franchises are forced to go in a different direction in an attempt to keep things fresh, which is exactly the plan for Prometheus in 2012. Since the incredibly popular first 2 movies of the franchise, things had steadily declined. Prometheus was released a whole 15 years after Alien Resurrection, and to say that fans were underwhelmed and even a little annoyed would be an understatement. The direction the movie went in was to essentially leave the iconic xenomorph behind in favour of focusing instead on the engineers. This was just one mistake made by the movie, but the only one that Ridley Scott has openly admitted to making. After 4 movies, he thought that audiences were tired of the xenomorph, and that moving on would have been the best for the franchise. The immediate and passionate reaction to the movie from fans proved just how wrong he actually was. Number 5. Making any sequels at all for Halloween. It is the hallmark of any successful movie that a number of sequels will ultimately be made off the back of it, and in the horror genre this is taken to more extreme lengths than usual. A Nightmare on Elm Street isn't the only franchise to have an absurd amount of sequels. Alongside Friday the 13th and Hellraiser, Halloween has made it into double-digit numbers. Any reasonable person can see that this is too many, but in the eyes of John Carpenter, even one sequel to his original 1978 movie was too many. After directing the original, Carpenter co-wrote the first sequel 3 years later, and in 2014 admitted that the franchise should have ended with just one movie. He felt that there was no more story to tell after the first 90 minutes, but whether on the back of fan demands or producer demands, Michael Myers kept returning. Carpenter even tried to end the franchise himself with Halloween 2, seemingly killing off the man behind the mask, but the money kept coming in, and so did the sequels. Number 4. Putting the best line of the movie in the wrong place in Halloween. Most sequel movies that come out 40 years after the original movie, with however many released in between, are inevitably just as tired and pointless as the previous few. However, in 2018, Halloween proved that trend could be broken. The 11th movie in the franchise proved to actually give Halloween the shot in the arm these sequels are supposed to do, and was so enjoyed by audiences that one of the movie's would-be most iconic lines completely passed them by. This particular bit of dialogue was added into the movie in such a last-minute fashion it came after test audience screenings, meaning the director had no way of knowing exactly how it would play out in the cinema. In reality, while the audience was still screaming at what came before, no one could hear Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie utter, "Happy Halloween, Michael." Director David Gordon Green absolutely stands by the line, but has admitted that it was a mistake to put it in the film where he did, in the middle of what was described as a ruckus from the audience. Had the line been put in before test screens, he would have known this and could have made the change before its theatrical release. Number 3. The tree scene in The Evil Dead. Shock value is one of the biggest tools at the disposal of any horror movie in the modern day. Whether it's a jump scare, something particularly gory, or even something so awful and vile it was put there with the sole intention of offending audiences. Tom Six built an entire franchise in The Human Centipede on the latter, and we can all agree that trilogy isn't exactly the height of cinematic brilliance. It is also something that Sam Raimi came incredibly close to doing with one scene in particular in The Evil Dead. The scene is iconic even now after 40 years, in which a woman in the woods is attacked by tree branches. They pin her arms and legs down, rip her clothes off, and slide up her leg and into her body. It's disturbing, a little too much so even for the man who directed the scene. Confessing that he felt the scene was a little too brutal, Raimi regrets making it how he did. It was never his intention to offend, only to scare and to entertain. He came a little too close to the knuckle with this moment and has never been tempted to go that far ever since. Number 2. Smoking too close to the camera in Halloween. It's quite often the case that the devil is in the details with regards to any movie. The most meticulous thought and effort could sometimes be put into something that, chances are, audiences may not even notice anyway. Such tiny details are usually there for a reason, even if it isn't quite obvious at first. Incredibly eagle-eyed viewers may have felt that way about the iconic scene in 1978's Halloween, when Michael Myers hides behind the bushes only to be revealed by Annie that he isn't there at all. While she is making fun of Laurie for being scared of nothing, a tiny, barely noticeable wisp of smoke can be seen floating across the shot. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but those that did may have questioned exactly what it was or what it meant. The truth? As told by the man himself on the DVD commentary, the mysterious smoke was the result of director John Carpenter lighting a cigarette too close to the camera and nothing more. No subtle foreshadowing, no subconscious commentary, just a director who couldn't wait for a smoke. Number 1. Freddy Krueger's change in appearance in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Movie characters go through changes all the time, whether an evolution of their character on a personality level, a change in costume, or even a drastically different appearance. These changes will always happen. Particularly susceptible to such alterations are movie franchises and characters that have been around for many years, with those behind the scenes feeling the need for shaking things up somewhat. Even the great Freddy Krueger wasn't immune from this. 10 years after his debut, Freddy came to screens again in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, with the director signing off a new, almost revamped look to one of the most classic horror movie characters of all time. He was essentially modernized and made to look somewhat slicker for the new release, and Wes Craven believed this to be a mistake in hindsight. While Freddy was certainly still recognizable and potentially even more realistic, there was just no need to change what had been working for the past 10 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The charred face was an iconic image, and there was absolutely no need to change it. There weren't exactly major consequences to it, but still a mistake in the eyes of most fans and even Wes Craven himself.